And we're live. Hello and welcome everyone to this week's virtual Lunch and Learn. Today we're talking about Integrated Architecture Builder. My name is Rachel Green and I'm the Digital Communications Specialist here at McNaughton-McKay Electric Company. Presenting for us today will be Todd Turnquist, PLC Product Manager out of our Norcross, Georgia location. Out in the comments section, ready to answer your questions today is Jeff Southern, PLC Product Manager, also out of Norcross. We'll also have a Q&A portion at the end for Todd to answer your questions in more depth. And we'll be getting started shortly. We just like to allow a few minutes for attendees to join us here. As you come in, let us know where you're tuning in from in the chat box there on the right. As we continue to socially distance, we're happy to be able to host these live sessions here on YouTube, making it possible for you to join us from the comfort and safety of your own homes and offices. You can always view recordings of previous virtual Lunch and Learns on the YouTube channel under the Virtual Lunch and Learn playlist. And we'll be continuing this series every Wednesday at noon, so please be sure to join us on your lunch breaks. For anyone just joining, welcome to our virtual Lunch and Learn today, Integrated Architecture Builder. Let us know where you're joining from in the chat box. Welcome from Lagos, Nigeria. We'll be looking for your questions as you have them, while our presenter Todd Turnquist discusses 3 key features of the Integrated Architecture Builder that allow you to immediately take advantage of its capabilities. Our specialist, Jeff Southern, will do his best to respond to your questions in the comments as we go along. We'll also have a Q&A segment at the end of Todd's presentation to address some more of those questions. If you'd like to reach out afterward, or if you have further questions for Todd, you can always send us an email at macandmaclive@macandmac.com. Be sure to let us know which session you attend, and we'll direct your questions to Todd. We'll also have that email address on the screen for you at the end. Welcome, Tim. Welcome, Leanne. Thanks for joining. All right, it looks like we have a number of attendees now, so let's go ahead and get started. Todd, I'll pass it over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Rachel. Welcome, everybody. As Rachel said, my name is Todd Turnquist. I'm one of the PLC product managers out of Norcross in the suburbs of Atlanta here. What I'm going to talk about today is Integrated Architecture Builder, IAB for short. I sort of have a passion for it. It is the software package that I use and my fellow product managers use when we're supporting you developing architectures, picking out hardware, networks, migrations, and things like that. So it is a free software tool that you can download and use. It does a lot of things. I would say one of the comments that I get when I talk about this product or IAB with customers is it sort of gets overwhelming. As you can see here looking at this, there's a lot of things it does. You can select the different hardware platforms, migrating PLC 5s, SLICs, building out networks, selecting power supplies, wiring systems, provides documentation, all kinds of things that you can do with it. And like I said, customers, the comment I get back, I've used it, I've sort of get overwhelmed with it at times, and so they sort of shy away from it. So what I wanted to do today was try to demystify it, focus on 3 key features that hopefully you will use, that you will get more comfortable with it to take advantage of it. At the end of the day, as I said, you can build a lot of things with it, but at the end of the day, the output that you're looking for typically is a bill of materials. You're looking for a list of hardware for your system. You're wanting to know if you picked the right stuff and if it will work together with each other. And that's what IAB will do for you. The other thing it does, you can create some diagrams. Perhaps you want to create a little architecture diagram for the customer or as a part of a report presentation of what you're building. So with that said, what I want to focus on are these 3 things: the wizards, adding hardware, or what I call the brute force, and adding in software. So with that, let's go to the software. When it first opens up, it'll make a network connection. One of the benefits that IEB does, it constantly keeps itself updated with the latest product and documentation. So you can always turn to it. It's a good source if you're wanting to find material as opposed to going to the Rockwell website, going to the literature library and things like that. You can come here and drill down from the hardware. When it opens up, typically just create a new project. I just start off with the default workspace. You can see here there's a bunch of other options that you could go with if you want to, but I tend to like just go with the blank slate because we're typically starting off with something simple here. I don't give it a name yet until I actually have something built. Save it off wherever I want to save it. All right, when it first comes up, you see the default view here, the main workspace over here that we'll be working in. Over on the left here, you see this workspace. Down at the bottom, if you'll notice, I'll stretch it out here so you can see, there's multiple tabs. The initial tab that we start out with here is the wizard tab, and that's where I want to start with. So over on the right, let me stretch it. Up at the top ribbon, you'll see several options here based on the different hardware platforms and things that are available to you. You may already be familiar with some of the Rockwell platforms and be able to dive right into a particular one, say ControlLogix or CompactLogix. If you're relatively new or you don't know what particular platform you would want to do, the Project Design Assistant is the best place to start. As you can see here, what comes up is a template of I/O. Typically, when you're starting here, if you don't know the platform, you do have the I/O requirements of your system. Let's put something in just for our purposes here. We'll just arbitrarily put some things in. And some analog signals here. Go to the next page. And you see by default, it shows me all the different families that I could build an architecture for. For the simplicity of time here, I'm going to uncheck several ones so it doesn't take too long to build things. But what I can do, basically what I've selected here, let's look at the ControlLogix, a couple of the CompactLogix platforms. Those are the most common ones. Perform an analysis. As it's thinking here. Over on the right, I should have. It's built my systems here, but I should have shown. And as you can see here on the right, it gave me a relative comparison. Now, let me adjust this so you can see this. A quick comparison of cost of these 4 different hardware platforms that I selected. Logix, from the Logix platform down to CompactLogix. Now what I can do is I can go in, I can only do one, so I need to unselect. And I'll do the lowest cost one. That's typically the ones people will go for. And build an architecture. And what will happen, we go over to the left side over here to these tabs. Down at the bottom, I'll select my hardware tab. And you'll see I have a chassis here based on the 5069 controller. Now, from here, I can manipulate this and modify it as I want to, but if I want to immediately see what the bill of materials is, up here at the top, you'll see there's this button with a $sign, show me the money. And what pops up immediately, as you can see, is a bill of materials. It does by default start including ancillary items such as network switches and things like that, and we can go back in build that out or clean that out as we develop our architecture here. There's a few options down at the bottom of here of how I can view that bill of materials. We'll leave it at the organized view right now, but when we do some of the other wizards, I'll show you the benefits of some of the other ones. All right, let's go back to the wizard again. And again, what I'd like to select here is the CompactLogix hardware format, because there's several different form factors in the CompactLogix family. So what I'd like to do is show you the value that IAB can provide for you as you sort of compare these different architectures. Just like the other wizard, it's basically going to step us through. You can see here on the left side, going to step us through the inputs, outputs, analog, and things like that. Up at the top, you see there's 3 different families. We'll default right now for the 1769 family. Digital inputs, all right, we'll put some AC, do some DC there. Outputs, all right, we'll have some AC, and let's do DC. Analog, current, let's just throw one in there. Next, we'll leave out motion for now. Networks, if I want to add any additional networks, but we're doing simple right now, so let's just leave it as is here. Last page here, the hardware selection. By default, you can see here it's picked out a controller and some I/O modules for us to build on. You can go through here if you want to change the family. For example, what's shown here is the embedded I/O controller, the L2 series. If that's not the form factor I'm wanting, I can change that out, and it'll adjust the I/O modules accordingly. If I want to change, for example, from a 16.0, if I want to use the 32 point, I can make these changes to my hardware for what I build out if I want to. And once I've done that, just default, build it out. Oop. Oop. Order distributed, no. All right, let's go back to the hardware tab where we were before. You'll see in the upper left, I've got another wizard there, and if you see now, I've got a 1769 based chassis. And if I go open up my bill of materials, and scroll down here, and you can see I've got all the I/O modules, and I've got the associated list pricing. IAB works with the list price for the hardware. One of the other features, before we move on and build another one here, is if you look over here on the right side, in this window pane over here, it keeps track of the power consumption. It's identifying power consumption of the module. It also has the dimensional information. As you're thinking about laying out the panel and things like that, providing that information for you at your fingertips. All right, so as I said, IAB allows you to build out iterations. I can compare options, and we did the 1769 here. And what I'd like to do is go back and run the wizard doing one of the other form factors. So what I'm going to do here, because the wizard will write over itself, I need to duplicate it and rename it, and we'll call it 1769. So I have a copy. Let's go back to the wizards. Run my wizard, edit, and the only thing I'm going to do is change the family. So up here at the top, 5069 family. Step through, my I/O counts all the same. Come to the last page here, And you'll notice now the catalog numbers are different. I have something in the 5069 family with associated default I/O modules, and I'm just going to say finish. You're about to regenerate, let you know it's overwriting it. Go back over here to the hardware, and you'll see I have another I/O chassis that shows up here, and this one's the 5069 chassis. All right. I'm going to duplicate that and rename that because I want to go back to my wizard again. Edit that. And let's look at the 1734. This would be a point I/O solution, the small form factor of CompactLogix. We'll leave the I/O counts the same. Basically go to the end of my wizard. And you'll see it's got a different controller there. Well, by default, you're about to regenerate, yes. Don't want to add anything. Go back to our hardware tab again. And you'll see I've got two chassis here showed up. And this is because the I/O, in this case, the I/O I required exceeded the capacity of the controller. So I could let this ride as is, or I do know there is a larger form factor of it. So I'm going to go back to the wizard. Go to the last page. And let's select the L18. Regenerate, yes. Go back to the hardware tab. Now you'll see on the left here, I've only got one chassis. You see, it basically put everything on one bus there. Now something that you'll notice too, in addition to the I/O modules, you'll also see these field power distribution blocks that it puts in there. That's one of the other benefits, beauties of IAB, is that it catches those things. This distribution blocks and the terminal bases are probably the #1 thing that I see customers forgetting to include when they size out anything using the point I/O system. But by building an IAB here, you see it automatically includes those for you. So since I'm not going to do any more, we'll go ahead and change the name of this one. Let's delete this one out. On my project, you see here, I've got three different CompactLogix solutions. Let's go to the bill of materials pricing. And if I scroll down here to the bottom, you can see I have a quick comparison of my relative price comparison of my three options, depending on which architecture I'd like to use, which set of hardware. So I have a good idea from a list price standpoint of which one may be the most cost effective. And again, I can export this out to Excel so I can further manipulate it, add other things to it, and things like that. You could also export it out to ProposalWorks. That's typically what the account managers use for developing a quote, things like that. So you can export that out so they can develop a bill of materials for you. Okay, one more wizard I want to show you up here. PLC 5s. How many of you are involved with PLC 5 migrations and doing that? If you've done that, you know there's the 1771 to 1756 wiring solution that allows you to easily convert, migrate a solution without doing a rip and replace. Selecting the cables and the adapters and all that kind of thing can be a onerous task, but with IAB here, it can be very quickly and easily done. I just go through with the defaults, default names there. You need to have your existing information, the chassis size. It'll ask you then to select what chassis you want to migrate to. One thing to keep in mind when you're doing PLC 5s to Logix migrations, the communication modules, the communications on a PLC 5 are all in the controller, but when you go to Logix, the modules are separate. So you will typically always need more slots than the original design. So always pick a larger chassis, identify the power supply, and select the power supply for the new chassis. And then you just go through and start populating what your existing configuration is here. So we'll throw in a controller, and then it pops up and gives me the option to select the new controller. I'll just arbitrarily pick something here. It does at this time also allow me to populate the communication module. So it knows what communications protocols the PLC 5 used. So it gives me those as options here. So typically, hopefully you're migrating from the old legacy ones all to Ethernet. So all that you need to do is put in an Ethernet module. So that's what we'll go with here. And you'll see it automatically populates down here in the Logix chassis. Okay. And let's go in and put some I/O modules in there. So I start populating it, and if there's any options or resolutions, because remember this is all a pre-wired system. The piece parts are all pre-wired, prefabricated. And in this example with the analog module, depending, you see over here on the right side, depending on what my signals are, the voltage, is it current, single-ended, double-ended, the prefabricated cable that's associated with this module is going to be different. So you have to be mindful. That's why you have options here. So we'll select one, and you see it starts putting things in there, and I'll just grab a few things. Let's go for some digital modules. And it just starts populating like you see that. Let's see. LED, there's one. All right, so we got a few modules there. That's my system. Let's say OK now, and now I want to generate hardware. And if I go over back to my hardware tab, you'll see I have a migration chassis here. You'll see that right there. And then if I go up to the bill of materials, and generate the bill of materials down here, and here's the PLC 5 migration there at the bottom, and you can see all that. And this is all organizationally. And this is where I want to show you. Let me show you one of the other options of how I can view this bill of materials down at the bottom positionally. If I select that button, if you'll see, it reorganized it here. Over on the left column, you can see it's the position. See, slot zero's got my controller, 1, 2, 3, 4, and on down for my modules. And you'll see at each slot, there's a module, there's a conversion cable, and there's the adapter module that goes in the chassis, the converted chassis. So I can export this information out and then use that information as a part of the drawings that I'm creating, or the information to make sure I have it all put together right and things like that. The other button here that I can consolidate bill of materials, that's convenient for your inside salesperson. It's just a running list of all the parts instead of having them broke down. It's got them all compiled together, one nice location. So you can use that way. One One of the other things, let me show you real quick while I'm here too. The other thing you can do with IAB, with any one of these different modules, I can right mouse on it and I can get documentation. So automatically pulls up information that I can use and reference, as opposed to, as I mentioned earlier, going to the literature library with that. Okay, now let's move on. That's the last of the wizards that I wanted to show you. The other way, so okay, you're a bit more experienced with Rockwell hardware. You know what you want. You don't want to step through the I/O counts and all that. You just want to pick parts and put them in there. I call that the brute force way. Up here at the top, there's action, add new hardware. Up pops a menu list here, you can see, and if you look closely, and I'll try to go slow so I don't give anybody whiplash there, but you'll see, I can do ControlLogix, CompactLogix, Micro 800 products, distributed I/O chassis, scrolling on down, motion products. I can do the drives in here, HMIs, and even Encompass partner products they have built into it here. In this case, what I'd like to do is we're going to do a ControlLogix chassis. It'll give me some room to do stuff. So I'm going to do a 13-slot chassis, nothing fancy. And you'll see what it gives me here is just a plain blank chassis that'll allow me to drag and drop components into it. You'll notice what showed up here was another window at the bottom called the device list. And there's multiple tabs across the bottom here. It opened up to the ControlLogix tab because that's what we're building here. But you can see there's CompactLogix, MicroLogix, distributed I/O, other things depending on what you're wanting. And here it's up to you to go through and sort of drill down and pick the hardware that you want to put in here. So we'll put in a controller. Scroll down, we'll have a communication module, Ethernet. So let's put an Ethernet. Let's go down to the I/O modules. Populate the I/O module in there. Now, for example, I put one IA16 module in there. What if I had 4 of them? I could drag and drop 4 of them like that, or something I found out after 5 years of using this product, I can just do Control, Select, and basically paste I/O modules in there. Let's throw in some outputs. Let's put it. Let's do no way. Okay, so let's put a couple of there. Let's throw in some analogs. Do an IF16. Let's do an OF16 as well, not OF4. Okay. And voila, I've built me a chassis based on my I/O. And again, go to the bill of materials. Scroll down to the bottom here, and you can see there's my ControlLogix chassis. List pricing, rough order of what I've got, and I can go on from there. Now, one more thing, the brute force, and again, so I can do this. I can build out each piece of hardware, and then what I can do is start connecting it together into a network, which networks on this would be a whole other topic that we could spend an hour just getting started on, and could spend a day on the actual building of networks. But just to show you what it would look like, what I want to do is do a quick add new hardware. I want to add a block of distributed I/O. I want to use, where is it up there? I'm going to do a point I/O, because point I/O is one thing that this tool is just a godsend for. It default puts a power supply. I'm going to take that out of there. But basically, you define your bank of point IO. There. Let's go down. So down in the bottom, then you see my distributed IO. I get my point IO. Let me get an adapter module, communication module to connect things up to. And now I can start populating it with IO. So let's start. We'll do some digital, and I'll do the copy and paste, make it easy for me. And some analog, throw that in there. Okay. I'm trying to make it do something here. Oh, what happened there? Look at that. As I was building this, IAD was keeping track of my power consumption across the backplane, and it automatically inserted this power supply expansion module in here to maintain the power on the backplane. So it automatically caught that, so I didn't have to worry about it and keep track of it. And it also notes where I need to put that in my configuration. Okay. The other part it will throw in there is the field power distribution block. I added in a AC module here, and before I was dealing with DC, so it automatically inserted this FPD module in there to make sure I can convert the power source onto the backplane for it. So it catches all that. This is FlexIO and PLC5 migrations are probably two of the main reasons to use IAB, if nothing else. So, all right, let's real quick, because I see where we are with time. What I want to do is now network. I'm just going to touch on network. What I want to do is connect these devices, and there's multiple ways that you can go in and create networks. I can build a network first and add things to it, or I could just sort of push things out to it. And just in the essence of time and wanting to show you the concept, I'm going to connect my controller and my distributed IO to this managed switch. And if you see in the workspace over here on the left, one of the tabs is network. And you'll see here, it created a network diagram showing my devices connected up there. So now I sort of have a simple network, and I can go in and change this switch. I can add other things. I mean, you can just imagine the kind of things I can do and build from here on out. So I don't want to get myself wrapped around the axle with that, because again, the end result you're looking for here, you know, typically you're on the front end of a project or you know, developing an application. So you're just looking for a quick bill of materials, you know, what parts do I need, and what kind of cost am I looking at here. The other thing I can do is up here at the top, there's this advanced communications tab. And what this does is it's looking at what I have connected together and letting me know, you know, how am I as far as connections, bandwidth utilization, and things like that. Green is good, yellow and red. Yellow is not good, and red is bad, meaning you need to go back and change something. So that's one of the outputs, and we could delve into that. So that's one of the tools as you build something out. Okay. The other thing, and the brute force I wanted to show you, okay, for CompactLogix, okay, we built out a chassis here, but hey, I want to take advantage. Isn't there that 1492 wiring system? that has the pre-wired cables out to terminal blocks, so I can minimize my installation, wiring effort, and all that kind of stuff. If you've ever worked with that, that can be a bear to select all those things. Well, one of the things IAB will do for you, up here on the chassis, at the top you see advanced wiring options. I can come through. By default, you see here I'm using screw terminal blocks down at the bottom. I can go through and I can change that. I could do the screw. I could use the clamp terminal blocks, your I/O ready cables, which are your pigtail cables, or the wiring system, which everything is the pre-wired cables. I can even select the cable length. Apply the defaults, and it goes through and it selects the best option of the components there. And you can go back and change them, because there are ones that have different features, fuses, indicator, LED indicators, and things like that. But this is a good starting point for developing something. And you'll see there, this showed up at the bottom of my modules. And if I go to my bill of materials, McNaughton-McKay chassis there. You can see some of these part numbers mixed in here. These are the IFM modules as well as the cables. If I actually change this out to the positional view, you'll see here where I have each module with its cable and its terminal block there. Okay. All right. The third thing that I want to show you is adding software. We picked out the hardware. Software sometimes can be a bear to get the right parts and things like that. So our IAB allows you to do that as well. Up at the top there's Action, Add Rockwell Software. It opens up in a sort of a separate window. It's a separate utility attached to IAB. Okay. It does populate based on what it sees you building. It does populate some default software packages in there. I typically just delete those out because I'm going to pick what I want to pick. Open up the catalog. As you can see, I've got a menu by product to go through where I can drill down and select my products. So for this project, let's assume we need to get the development software as well as the actual application software. So you just go through and pick what you want. Okay, Studio 5000, we've got that. We are going to have an HMI system, so I need some HMI software. We're going to do an SE system, so let's do the enterprise software. There will be an SE server on this. I know I'm going to have 5 clients, so I'm going to take advantage of the bundled product offering there. Scroll on down a little further, as you can see the different things that are available. We want a historian. We're going to log 5,000 data points. Since I mentioned we got an SE architecture, we're going to take advantage of Thin Manager product. So I'm going to also include some Thin Manager, and I'm going to have five clients. And down here, click Add to Bill of Materials. And then select Review Bill of Materials. And there's the summary of all the software that I've added to my bill of materials. Click Finish, and it closes that out. And now if I go back to my bill of materials button there, the magic money button, and if I go down to the bottom, I apologize if I'm causing whiplash. There's a list of all my software and the list pricing there. So I've got a good idea right now. So assuming that what I've built out here is my project, here in a matter of 30 minutes or so, I know I've got a good idea that the project I'm looking at is about $140,000 in hardware and software. Like I said, I can export this out to Excel and manipulate it, export it to ProposalWorks or something like that. The other thing we could do, and I'll show you this just real quick, I mentioned, creating a graphic, picture's worth 1,000 words type of thing. So I could quickly create some type of, I'll put that in a separate switch of itself right there, and I can manipulate all that. I can export this out to a PowerPoint or a report or something, and share that with the customer so they can get a visual of what the system looks like. So that's sort of the end of my formal presentation here of walking through this. Like you can see, there's a lot it can do. It can get overwhelming, but I think you step back and just think of it as, what do I want? What do I want out of it? I'm looking for a bill of materials. I can either brute force it if I know what hardware I want, and then I could connect it up. Or if I don't necessarily know, I can run a wizard and have it spit it out for me. And then I can manipulate it after that. There's a lot of other things, a lot of other capabilities. You just sort of have to get in there and noodle around with it and see what it can do. You can also share this file with your distributor specialist. It's a great tool as a working document in building something and being able to work back and forth and collaborate together on it. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Rachel, and see if there's any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. We do have a couple questions in the chat, about 3 questions total, and we'll see if we have some follow-up. Jeff has been addressing these for us as we go along, but I'll just go ahead and read them out in case you want to add anything additional, and for the folks that are tuning in with us and in the recorded version of this. So the first question comes from Alawabi. He asked, how can one get the IAB software? Is it a licensed software or free? And Jeff did respond that it is a free download, and we dropped a link to the Rockwell website in the chat window there. But I wasn't sure, maybe you want to add something else before we move on to the next question?
Oh, nope. I got it. I'm sorry. That's usually the first thing I say about IAB is free. So I forgot. Sorry. Yes, it is a free download. Go to IAB.com and search on IAB.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, not a problem. We have that link in the chat window for anyone that's watching the recording there. And then also we have a question from Kenneth. He asks, can you show the footprints of all 3? I believe he's referring to the drawing footprints and the panel footprint. Jeff did respond that you can right-click on the graphic items and it'll pull up the manuals. I wasn't sure if maybe you wanted to show us that and maybe talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, as far as so the footprint, I assume what you're wanting, I guess, to get to a drawing. I guess the one thing IAB shows you, what I've got here is the one chassis. Over on the right, you'll see it shows the dimensions of what it is. But yeah, so if I right-click on the chassis, and it pulls this up, and let me see, I guess I'm drilling down trying to find the details of the drawing. I'm not sure. Come on, move over.
And Kenneth, the person who asked this question, I'll just mention for your reference, you can always reach out to us at the Mac and Mac Live email address if you have specific questions about any of this too.
Yeah, I'd have to see, I guess I'd have to noodle through and find to see it here what the documentation is. If it's not specifically this, then we could get you could do a search on the installation instructions.
Great. Kenneth, I encourage you to reach out if you have follow-up questions, or if we've covered it, then that's great too. We have one other question. Oh, and Kenneth says, he's asking, can you get a total length of the build? That's Kenneth's specific question.
Total
if it would
length.
help for sizing for an enclosure.
That's a big, I mean, you can get the individual components here. I guess total length, because each one is individual, and I guess it depends on how you're laying it out. So I guess the best you can do is you can get the dimensions of each one of these components here, and then you'll just sort of have to work with that in AutoCAD. But there's no way to take that information and export it over into AutoCAD or something like that.
Okay. We have one other question from Tim, and I believe he followed up and said that you may have already shown this, but his question was, will it show the 1492 swing arm conversion system when doing the 1771 migration wizard? Same question when doing the SLC migration.
Will it show the conversion?
Will it show the 1492 swing arm conversion system when doing the 1771 migration wizard?
Yes. Okay, I pulled up here. That's what I've got here highlighted. This is the migration one I did. You see it's populated here. So if I pull up the bill of materials, let's go into the bill of materials. Let me scroll down to that one. Here's the migration bill of materials, and I'll switch it over to positional so you can see it. So there it is right there. So if we look closely let's look at position 2. That's the new IO module is the 1756 IF16 module. The associated conversion module here is listed next, and then the conversion cable associated is listed next. I don't have I guess it doesn't have a diagram or something, a picture, I guess a graphic or cartoon showing those components, but it does list those 3 right there.
Great.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, we do have one follow-up question from Sandeep. He asks, can we check compatibility of components in IAB?
Compatibility in, I guess that's something you'd probably go to the website. I mean, the compatibility you're going to have here is as I build something out, it's only going to allow me to put in components into a chassis that, a 1756 chassis if it's 1756 components. It won't allow me to put something where it can't. If that's the question, if it's versions of software, certain things working with stuff, I would suggest you go to the compatibility website for that.
Okay, that's great. And Sandeep, if you have more specifics you want to get into, again, please feel free to reach out at the MCMC Live email address.
And one other thing, let me point out, up here at the top under help, IAB is very good with its help content. It's got labs. Let me pull that up here. It's got labs that you can work on this specific components. Oops. It's got quick starts, drilling down depending on what it is you're trying to do. It is an incredible tool. It's even got videos as well showing you how to do some of these things. So in addition to this video, it has built in some additional videos on how to do some of the things.
Wonderful. Thanks for showing us that. All right, we'll give just a moment here to see if anyone has any follow-up questions. And Todd, would you bring up that last slide for us so we can show the email address for anyone tuning in? If you have any questions, reach out to us at macandmaclive@macandmac.com. And just let us know the name of the session you attended so that we can get your questions to the correct presenter. And we'll send this directly over to Todd and he can get in touch with you. And yeah, we don't have any follow-up questions at this time. So I just want to thank you, Todd, for a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Jeff, for being our resource out in the comment section today. And thank you to all of our live viewers for your time. We hope this session was informative and engaging for you. Remember to subscribe to the McNaughton-McKay YouTube channel for more industry content like this. And we look forward to seeing you live in one of our next virtual Lunch and Learn sessions. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.